The takeaway here is that given time and opportunity, you want to check your natural point of aim and make sure that the rifle is pointed at the target and the shooter is pointed to the rifle and you're not steering it off, because the more you input to the system, the more error you add to it. We're out at the range and we're checking natural point of aim. We can check it at 100, but we're out here at 500 yards and we want to check natural point of aim and eliminate it from other environmental factors like wind, which we're dealing with here. How we're going to do that is take the shooter out of the equation by covering up the scope caps and see how consistent the groups are and the shots are without that shooter influenced anticipation of what the reticle might be doing or what might be happening outside of your position alone, so that we are checking whether your rifle is pointed to target and stays pointing to target. All right, here we are at 500 yards with the results of the natural point of aim test. And we can see here that testing fundamental variables at distance reveals some problems, which is why some things we prefer to train at 100 yards and others distance. And that is the idea of compounding errors or stacking tolerances. With natural point of aim, we have the rifle pointed to target, and when the shooter grabs that rifle and connects to it, they're inputting error to the system. And if you are not driving that rifle off the target, you have good natural point of aim. When you get up on a higher, less stable position, there's more wobble, so there's more influence of the shooter to put off that natural point of aim. As you go to distance, wind is an environmental factor that affects not only the bullet, but also the stability of the position. And so when you miss a target because you think it's wind, it could be natural point of aim, and you mistake it as wind. And so when we shoot, we want to do multiple rounds to establish where the consistency and the variability is. So I like to use a reticle and measure that reticle. So I drew mine on here to show you that when I stand and shoot group, it's usually about 3/10 in width. Now here at distance, the standard deviation of my ammo is 6. So I'm not worried about my dope being good at 500 yards, which is why we've got a pretty consistent line of elevation. What we see here is that wobble is consistent with my standing shooting consistency. So I would expect to have a 3/10 group from standing without wind being too much of an influence. Now there is wind, and we're getting wind from about 5 miles an hour to 11. And so that can make your position unstable. But I would say that this is consistent with my shooting, especially considering that I can't see what I'm shooting at. And so I'm not sure if psychologically I'm doing something to increase. But what we can see here is that this is consistent with other variables. So I don't think it was wind that caused this shot. I think it falls within the expected pattern of shots, which I would have expected that to be somewhere in this circle. And if I kept continuing to do this test, my guess is that without correcting for wind, because this group is shifted because my wind call was anticipating stronger wind, I think all my shots would have fallen in this zone.